Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being on time. We had a short change of plans. David was not able to make it today, but we have Scott Bliss instead. Very familiar with the same topic and is going to give us a great run through, very interactive presentation and training today. He's from Sandler, Jersey Shore, and Maximum Performance Management. They cover a whole range of topics of sales, management, business development, customer service, operations, entrepreneurship, just about anything. But we're still going to stick to the original training today for risk mitigation and strategies for sales success. So Scott definitely welcomes participation and questions along the way. Chat them in, raise your hand, unmute yourself, turn on your cameras. We love it all. Yeah, I will pass it off.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Natalie. I know we have a small group here, which is even better. It means we can customize this a little bit more. Take a look at today as kind of like sales training for you, individual educational training. We're definitely going to stick with the topic, but we're going to have plenty of time to kind of address some of your concerns as it relates to sales process. I would love if you can turn on your cameras, because right now I'm looking at just your names in a black box and it doesn't make it very conversational. So if you can at least turn on your cameras, that would be great. Come off of mute, and we can even just start real quick with a brief introduction. Scott, if you'd like to start, you're the first one I see with your camera on. You want to give a brief introduction, who you are, where you're from, and real quick 15 seconds on your business?
Yeah, my name's Scott. I'm currently in Florida. I travel the country in a fifth wheel, and I manage the business development for an auction company out of Arizona, Surplus Asset Management / SAM Auctions. And I received this invite, so I figured I might as well jump on and see what y'all have to offer.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you. Glad to see you. Who's next? Derek, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hey, my name is Derek Bohr. I work for a company called Tiger Swan and a subsidiary company called Hawkeye. We do a lot of risk management overseas. We have requirements for human capital, both internationally and here in the States, for a lot of a variety of opportunities, both on the government side and the commercial side. I'm not going to come on camera because I'm in a car and that's distracting. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Focus on the road for sure. Ian?
Oh, hey, how you doing? There you are.
Hey, Ian.
I'm with a company called Dietrich. We actually do risk mitigation, or offer risk mitigation services specifically for companies that have defined benefit plans. So traditional pension plans looking to offload that liability, get it off their books. So we facilitate that process from start to finish.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Peter? Is Peter a live person or is Peter a bot? A note taker? Not sure. Well, okay. Cool. Well, Peter, if you want to introduce yourself when you get a moment, I'd be happy to hear from you. So what we're going to be talking about today, I know we got a couple of folks here, risk mitigation, and that's kind of like the topic of our talk, right? But risk mitigation strategies for sales success. So not so much risk mitigation for some of the things that you guys do. So hopefully the topic wasn't misleading, but risk mitigation strategies for sales success. We're going to talk about specific reasons why maybe we don't get where we need to be from a sales perspective. So really just a quick question that I'd love to ask all of you, and Natalie and Ashley, please feel free to answer this question as well. When you think about selling and your role in business development, whether it's pure sales, whether it's inside sales, customer service, business development, whatever you think it is, when you're dealing with prospects, right? Answer the following question for me. I feel like I'm pretty good at what I do, but when it comes to dealing with prospects and customers, I really wish I can get better at 1, 2, or 3 things. What comes to mind? And you can call, we're a small enough group, you can call it out or you can throw it in the chat. but when it comes to a sales process, a sales methodology, dealing with prospective clients, what do you really wish that you could be better at? Maybe things are doing to you where you get frustrated. What frustrates you the most when dealing with prospects and customers?
I would say, well, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm stumped on you. Go ahead.
I would say diffusing the initial call, the initial conversation, helping them understand or be open to that introduction.
Okay, so when you say diffusing, you mean just more or less seeing if there's a reason to talk further, potentially.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. What's the best, I guess, initial approach without giving so much information up front? You know, I hate to throw everything at the wall.
Let's see what
You know,
sticks.
let's figure out, you know, if this is even a fit first.
Right, and so is that Ian? Is that from even a cold calling perspective of just even seeing if it's worthwhile to get in front of them for a meeting, or get them on the phone for a meeting?
Yeah, in our position, you know, for example, there's people already involved advising on what we're coming in to talk about, but our position is different, and it's not recognized until we're able to have that call and explain, you know, really in more detail, you know, what our role is in the process. So it's a very high wall that we've got to jump over, a hurdle, just to get in the door.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to call that initial conversation or generating interest. Okay, generating
Yeah, I
interest.
would tie into the same thing. I think, you know, I've been in the industry now that I'm now for 26 years. I mean, I understand that once I get somebody on the phone, you know, converting that person to a client is, I say easy. I mean, but I have a better than average chance of doing that. So I think, as Ian was just saying, it's kind of that initial, you know, it's that initial conversation, and making sure that it's an initial conversation with the right person. You know, because you know what I mean? It's like you can get into a particular company, that's great, but you want to talk to the person that ultimately is the decision maker in your little sphere.
Right. So generating interest, initial conversation, decision maker. Excuse my handwriting, please. I'm a frustrated doctor. I'm a pre-med dropout. Derek, you were going to say something as well?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I could kind of dovetail into both portions of those comments. You know, we're a niche company that we don't really sell widgets. It's mostly services with sort of widgets built into it for what we do. But with that, you know, again, they're sort of highlight getting to the right person that's a decision maker. We seem to have a systemic problem of, you know, our capture process is long. One, just because some of it's with government, but two, with the commercial side, it's, you know, we often don't get in the right room with the right person, maybe the second call, and then you kind of reiterate everything you've already gone over, so you're burning cycles, and it's you know, I guess, you know, I would desire to gain some efficiencies. One, to get the right person in front of us the first time, but two, even before that, kind of separate the wheat from the chaff on, you know, is this just not a shiny object we're chasing? Does it fit into our core competencies on what we're trying to achieve? Does it fit into the business plan? Does it fit into our skill set? You know, all the normal things. But I mean, just again, organically, we have a little bit of a problem doing that. So that's what we're looking for too with this relationship.
Got it. So what I take away from that, Derek, is once you get through the hurdle of getting the right people in the room, it's now properly qualifying them to see if they're a good fit for you or if you're a good fit for them, right? So would that be more on the qualification stage of things? Would you agree with that?
Exactly, and you know, I'll even say that we have the worst elevator pitch ever because it's often we're referred from friends and family and other, you know, maybe some of our vendors, and we end up asking, so what is it that you need? You know, because we can give you the pitch because we're a solutions company primarily, but yeah, just, you know, the approach.
Got it. Okay, Cool. Thank you for that. Claire and Austin, I know you joined a little late. If you can turn your videos on, that would be great to put a face with the name. If not, I always say you can't be having a worse hair day than me. I already used that joke on Natalie and Ashley, so they're not laughing but they did laugh the first time just a little bit. Hello, Claire. But the question I posed to the group that I asked, you're pretty good at what you do, whether it be sales or business development. But when it comes to dealing with prospects and clients, you really wish you could be better at 1, 2, or 3 things. So some of the things we have now are getting in front of the right people, the decision makers, elevator pitch, 30-second commercial, qualifying the opportunity more stringently. Claire, what comes to your mind? Anything specific that you know what, I really wish I can get better at this?
I think just getting in front of the right people, and like having really eye-catching copy. I have a passion for that. Yeah, being able to really get people's attention.
Okay, got it. So digitally, eye-catching copy. Okay, so you're looking at it from maybe an email or a mailer type, something that's going to resonate with the audience, right? Got it. Okay, I'm gonna chalk that one up to messaging, but also prospecting, because there's so many different ways to prospect, right? You have your cold calling, you have your cold emails, you have your video emails, you have your LinkedIn and other forms of social media. You have something that Derek mentioned, which is the best and easiest way to get in front of the right people. Derek might not have even realized that he said it, but did anybody besides Derek catch what he said about how he's getting in front of people? Anybody catch what he said?
Is it referrals?
Yeah, bingo. Referrals and introductions. That immediately takes the cold out of it, and it's now warm. It's now a warm call, warm introduction. That's part of a prospecting plan, right? And so many people don't ask for referrals, don't ask for introductions because they think it's intrusive. And towards the end, I'll explain a bit of the difference between a referral and introduction, because there is a clear delineation between the two of them, what a referral is and what an introduction is. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Austin, what about yourself? You're really good at what you do, but you're from a sales process perspective, you really wish you can be better at 1, 2, or 3 things?
Yeah. So I think for my team, what I'm working really hard on is trying to be a good bridge between prospects and clients. And for our team, a lot of our team is former special operators or high-level military individuals. And so trying to be the bridge for clients that are not of that type of background, and trying to sell the product to them while also doing service and communicating properly with my team about what the client should expect or what the prospect should expect going forward.
Okay, so could that be creating mutual agreement or expectation setting? Would that be a good?
I would say both for sure.
Okay, got it. And what is it that you guys sell, Austin?
So we sell a platform called Hawkeye, which is an international safety and security platform for high net worth individuals, but also for study abroad students as they're traveling the world. Essentially an international SOS button, except for when you hit our SOS button, you get connected with special operators, military analysts, and first responders immediately, rather than getting connected with civilians that were hired for that role. So you're getting specialists whenever you hit that button.
Got it. Pretty
So
cool.
the interesting thing is that Austin and I work together, so we're looking at this from a couple different perspectives. So this is good for us for sure.
Awesome. Got it. So you could tell us more, but because it's so top secret, you could tell us, but then, we might disappear, right? So just kidding. Military family.
No,
my son.
we'd always know where you are. No worries.
Yeah. So does Easy Pass, by the way. No, just kidding. So, but yeah, we'll get into a little bit of the risk mitigation piece of what we're going to put forward here. But like I said, we're going to have plenty of time to really go into more detail and answer some of your specific questions. I'm going to share my screen here, and this essentially is I only have like a couple of slides, right? And in this slide, we're going to talk about three things: prospect risk, prospect pain, and prospect control. And whether or not we have higher risk or the prospect has higher risk. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means. And when we're talking about specifically in a sales interaction, the term prospects risk refers more to the potential concerns or uncertainties or hesitations that that prospective customer may have when considering a purchase. Right. So think about everything you go through when you got that pesky salesperson, either on the phone or in your house or in your office, right? Trying to sell you something, trying to convince you to buy something. That's mistake number one, right? It's not the salesperson's job to convince you, and it's not the salesperson's job to sell you anything. What do you think about that? As salespeople, as business development people, a sales trainer just said to you, it's not your job to sell or convince. How does that make you feel? What do you think?
Well, as a salesperson, your job is to listen and solve somebody's problems. Your job isn't to sell. In theory, if they're talking to you, they already have an interest in what you're selling. Your job is simply to, I mean, let's face it, 98% of every salesperson's livelihood is, it's based on what you hear, it's what you see, and it's thinking through what those solutions are. It's not your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a thing at Sandler that says the 70-30 rule, right? That salespeople should be listening 30% of the time. I'm sorry, listening 70% of the time and talking 30% of the time. And in the 30% of the time that they're talking, what do you think they should be doing in that 30% of talking?
Solving the person's problems after you already listened to what their company, what the client needs.
Yeah, that 30%, you're asking questions, right? You're gathering information, right? Because if you start, the typical salesperson, a lot of times what the typical untrained salesperson does, we talk about qualifying for interest. Am I in front of the right people, the right decision maker, right? They do very little bit in the way of qualifying for interest. They get in front of somebody and then they immediately start doing what I call the show up and throw up, right? Or the pitch. Here's who we are. Here's what we do. Here's how long we've been in business. And it's always a very features and benefits laden speech of we're the biggest, we're the best. We have great customer service. We have amazing quality. Our prices are extremely cost effective, and they're just throwing out all these features and benefits. We have 5 regional warehouses all over the country, just in time delivery, all these features and benefits of selling, and it just doesn't work. Maybe it did years ago, but features and benefits selling just doesn't work anymore. Like Scott said, the best salespeople are the ones that ask the right questions, gather a bunch of information, and then potentially have the ability to offer solutions to that person's problem. And that's what the best salespeople do. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason: to listen more and talk less. Right. But when we kind of look at this slide, right, with the prospect risk being on top of the graph there, right, understanding and addressing the prospect's risk is crucial for determining if they're going to move forward with us, or if there's even an opportunity for us. Because buyers in today's environment, I think we can all agree. Why do you think it's so difficult to get in front of buyers?
Because they're over inundated with everybody that's emailing them every day with junk that they don't need, that they just ignore every single person that comes out.
Yeah. Yep. And if we are lucky enough to get in front of them, whether it's on a Zoom, a Teams, a GoToMeeting, or even get them to answer the phone, why do you think their defensive walls are immediately raised and up? What do you think?
Because of that influx of stuff they've got to filter through every day.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
but
you've got to have something that's going to offer them a differentiation between, every other person, because you're not the only person trying to reach out to them, trying to solve their problems. They've got everybody else on the planet. So what is your differentiating factor? And if you can get that up to them and in front of them, they'll listen. But if you can't, they're just going to shut you down.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Their defensive walls are up because they know this polished, well-trained salesperson is on the other end of this call or on the other end of this Zoom meeting, and they're trying to sell me something. They are trying to coerce me. They're trying to talk me into buying something that I may or may not need, right? But my defensive walls are up. I don't know these people, and if I don't know them, I don't what? Finish that. I don't know you, so I don't
Trust you.
trust you. Right? And think about a salesperson. Let's think about negative connotations associated with salespeople. Throw out some of those negative connotations. What do we hear? Salespeople are what?
Only in it
Slimy.
for the commission.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pushy.
Pushy, aggressive, looking for that commission, greasy, slimy. You don't trust them.
Well,
All
they
these
don't.
things.
In a lot of cases, how many times have anybody on this thing had a salesperson that doesn't even understand what the heck they're selling? I mean, you have to be the product expert. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
Well, there's that, and they're bringing something to you that you have absolutely no need for because they've misdiagnosed what you do, one, or two, what you need because they haven't spent the time to do some due diligence or at least a bit of research. That happens to us quite a bit.
Yeah. So I love your term there, Derek, misdiagnose, right? When you misdiagnose their needs, what profession does that word misdiagnose come from? Where do we hear it most often?
Medical.
Yeah, the medical field. Yeah.
The medical field, right? So when you look at the right side of this graph, I'll finish off the risk piece, right? If the prospect has something to risk, which is either their reputation, their money, their job, right? So if we don't fully understand the risk from their perspective, right, we're not going to win the deal, right? If we understand risk and we understand why we're there, the reason for doing business, we have a much greater chance of winning the deal. But if you kind of look at the prospect pain on the right side of this graph, this is where your money is made right here. And I don't remember who it was that said it. I think it might have been Derek. I kind of summed up the qualifying the opportunities. Are we talking to the right people is part of it, but are we talking to the right people for the right reasons? That's the bigger part of it. And any good salesperson, right, is worth their weight in gold when they can get to pain. And I'm talking pain to the third level, not just kind of like a surface level pain. And I'll give you an example of a surface level pain. But when we are doctors, it's our job as salespeople to be doctors of what we do. And I'll give you this analogy. Ian, let's say you're walking, you're messing around. I don't know if you have kids or not, but let's say kids, nephews, neighbors, whatever, you're messing around over the weekend and you're playing a little bit of tackle football and you hurt your shoulder pretty bad. You wait a couple of days. It's not really getting any better. So you go to the doctor, right? You walk into the doctor's office. What are some of the things the doctor's going to ask you, Ian?
Ask me what happened.
All right, ask you what happened. Why are you here? What's going on? I see in my notes something's wrong with your shoulder. What's going on? Right? What else is he going to ask you? Anybody. This can be for anybody. Right. You can all throw in here.
Where's your pain? Where's your pain from 1 to 10?
Where's your pain from 1 to 10? Absolutely. What else? Doesn't have to be just you, Ian. Derek, Austin, Scott, chime on in. I think we lost Claire. What else is the doctor going to ask you?
I don't know. I guess maybe is this a new injury or is this an old injury?
Yeah. All right. New injury, old injury. When did you do it? How did you do it?
Do you have good insurance?
Yeah, right. No, they ask you that before you even get back to see the doctor. Right. The front office people are trying to do that. But the doctor's going to go in there. He's going to walk in the room and he's going to start asking you things like, what's the problem? When did it happen? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your level of pain? What have you tried to do about it? Well, I tried to take some ibuprofen. Did that help? Not really. I tried to take some acetaminophen. Did that help? Not really. Okay. What else have you tried? I iced it. Did that work? No. I tried heat. Okay. That didn't work either. Right? What about when you stretch out? The doctor's going to ask you a bunch of questions. And think about it. What's the doctor's job?
Diagnose the problem.
To diagnose the problem. Why does he need to diagnose it? For what reason?
You can't fix it if you
Treat
don't
it.
know what the problem is.
So how can that relate to sales?
Goes
Treat it.
back to, you need to be able to, you got to know what your customers' pain points are.
You gotta know the pain. You gotta know why you're there. And it doesn't matter. A lot of times as salespeople, we know that sometimes our phones aggressively ring, right? And it's great when our phones aggressively ring. That means our prospects are calling us for a problem that they're willing to share with us, which is great. But I think I can speak for all of us when I say that just doesn't happen often enough. And too often we have to be very proactive. And we have to go out there and have the right plan of activities, a prospecting plan that's going to get us in front of new people. Right? And we talked, I mentioned earlier, part of that plan needs to be, yes, cold calls. People tell me all the time, cold calling is dead. No, cold calling is not dead. You just stink at it. Right? That's what I tell people. There's ways to do it. And we're going to deal with a lot of failure. There's still going to be a lot of people that don't need our services. There's still going to be a lot of people that hang up on us. There's still going to be a lot of people that might not answer their phone. I mean, I literally have salespeople tell me, you know what, Scott, I made 15 dials last week and nobody answered their phone. Okay, I'm never doing another dial. Well, that's not the right mindset. The fact is, if all you're doing is cold calls, right, you need to do more than that. Right? Lead generation is all about making the right activities, holding yourself accountable to doing those activities, right? So making the cold calls, doing the emails, doing the video emails if you're not already doing them, doing the LinkedIn research and the pre-call planning from that aspect, the introductions, the referrals, a whole bunch of different things of outbound prospecting things that you need to do and hold yourself accountable to, right? So that's certainly all part of it. You need to do a little bit of everything. Right? But have the right mindset that says one thing isn't going to work better than the other. I need to do everything, but also dealing with the failures that come with that. Right? The emails going to spam, or you can come up with every reason in the book to say, listen, I'm not going to do a video email. I'm not comfortable with myself on camera. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. So if you think that, you're going to already psych yourself out of doing these 30-second maybe email prospecting videos, but it's different. It's part of what you should be doing for that plan, right? But that's getting in front of the right people. Once you're in front of them, you have to understand the pain, the reason for doing business, right? And being able to do that requires a great skill of gathering information and asking the right questions, right? So Scott, in your world, when somebody says, you know what, Scott, we're having quality issues with our current provider, how would you respond to that?
For if it was me responding to that, is help me understand what quality issues you're referring to, because I want to know exactly what quality. I mean, is it, in the auction industry, is it the quality of the information, the quality of the leads? Is it the quality of their sales? I mean, there's so many different ways. Quality is just a big term, but assuming it's, I don't like the quality of their customer base because their auctions aren't producing. At that point, you want to steer into, or I would at least steer into talking through, not to badmouth my competitor. However, these are the options that we have in that area, and our systems that we've had in place over 30 years of experience doing this would be able to, give you a much better opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's putting that doctor hat on now, that stethoscope, to say, okay, when you say quality, and it could be quality, it could be delivery, it could be service, it could be pricing, it could be they're not getting back to us quick enough. It could be a number of things, right? Whatever that stall or objection is, right? Could be a number of things.
Over my lifetime, I've had so many salespeople that I've hired and trained, and it's always, hey, I've got a customer that's looking for a lot of something. Well, define a lot. What does that mean, right? I mean, you've got to dig into it with your customer, not only, in my opinion, the quality, but why, what, and then, ultimately getting that, being able to ultimately solve their problems is the only reason why they're ever going to do business with you anyways.
Yeah. Well, people buy on emotions, right? Pleasure and pain, right? They either have an immediate pain right now, we need a new provider of this, we need a new auction house, we need a new lead generation company, and here's why, right? Here's what's broke. And then people buy for fear of pain. I want to make sure I do this today. So, for instance, I had the HVAC company at my house yesterday because we're getting ready to turn on the heat. I want to make sure that everything's working, everything's fine, right? I'm fearful that it's going to be, 20-degree days and my heat's not going to work, right? So people buy, they do certain things to avoid pain, but they also buy for pleasurable experiences. If I were going to an auction, I'd probably be buying something that maybe I want that don't necessarily need, right? Or if I buy a boat in the spring, that's bringing me pleasure, right? So you got to understand buying motivations. It's all about emotion and what is the emotion and think about when you buy personally in your personal life, right? You make decisions emotionally. I'm sorry, you buy emotionally, but you make decisions intellectually. You want something, but then you start thinking about it. Can I afford it? How much do I want to pay for this? Do I want the cheapest and just get by, or do I want to invest a little bit more and get something with a little bit better quality, right? But ideally, you have to understand their pain. Quality or service or cost is not a pain, but what it is, it's an indicator that there is a greater problem at hand here. And it's your job as a salesperson, again, to put on that stethoscope and be the doctor and really be able to find the pain. The thing they're telling you is not the real problem. What they're telling you is not the real problem, right? The quality of the service, the price isn't the real problem. You have to find out how long has it been going on? Give me an example. What have you done to try and fix it? Has it worked? Have you given up trying to deal with the problem? Is staying status quo even an option? Right? All these things, once you fully identify the pain, right? And selfishly as well. And here's where the risk mitigation really comes into play. And I'm going to play out all the slides here, right? It really comes into play where if you fully understand their pain, fully understand it, and you have a solution for their pain, you have a very high chance of winning the deal. Now, you might still lose it due to competitive pressures, but ideally, if you've made the decision in your qualification step, there is a pain here. There's a problem. I fully understand the problem, and I believe we have a good solution for it. Then you continue the sales process. What if you don't think you can solve their pain? What do you do?
You tell them that up front.
Yeah.
I mean,
Save
you
time.
can say it. I would always explain to them what you can do, but if it's not gonna, if it's not necessarily gonna solve their problem this time, you want to honor their time so that the next time you do have something that will solve their problem, they're likely to come back to you.
Yeah. Bingo. Bingo. And the sooner that you can understand that, and it's even like telling them, listen, hey, Scott, listen, I need to learn a little bit more about why we're talking, what's going on. So let's do this. You and I will spend a little time. You'll share with me what's happening, right? We'll make a determination to see if I can help you or not. If it is something that I feel like we can help you with, at some point, you're probably going to want to know what those investment parameters look like, right? So we can kind of get that out of the way, right? Because we might have a solution for you, but you might not want to pay for our solution. So, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then ultimately, at some point in time too, you might tell me that you're not the only one that's in charge of making the decision for this, right? That there's others within your organization that need to get involved. So, I learned from experience that if we can get all the decision makers together in one room, nothing gets lost through translation, and we can have this conversation, right? And then make a determination on if we move forward or not, right? So there's just so many different aspects of it, but for an opportunity to be what I call properly qualified and worth your time, you have to be able to clearly articulate three things. And this is probably note-taking worthy. The three things that you need to clearly articulate are, is there a pain that you can solve? That's number one. And not just the quality or the service issue, but really going deep into pain, right? Do you fully understand the pain? And can you offer a treatment program for it? That's number one. Number two, at some point, you need to have the budget conversation. You need to bring up money, and a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about money or level of investment. And there's deep-rooted psychological issues as to why that happens. I know when I was a kid, anytime we talk about money, my mother would say, that's none of your business, right? Sometimes talking about money makes people uncomfortable. So picture this scenario. You're working on a deal. You think you do a pretty good job in pain. You're starting to build rapport, build trust with the prospect. And then you send them your proposal. They look at that proposal and it's amazingly a lot more higher than they ever thought it would be. Like a lot higher. What do those prospects do sometimes? Once they see it?
Panic.
They panic and do what?
They turn off. They stop talking to you.
Yep. We call it ghosting. They ghost you. Right? Because what you did is you created an aura of sticker shock. Right? They had no idea what to expect. And we were kind of afraid to talk about it because we didn't want to scare them off. We'll just let them open up the proposal when they get it. And, you know, maybe they call us back, maybe they don't. Right? So if you know you can solve the pain, you understand it, you want to start having those preliminary conversations. And listen, based on the issues you're telling us, I had a similar situation with another client a few months ago, and the implementation of everything. You're probably looking at an investment of around $25,000 to $30,000. Should we continue the conversation? Right? Because here's the thing, you know, every stall or objection you've ever heard, right? When was the last time you heard something new, a new one? Think about that for a moment. When was the last time you heard a new stall or objection that totally threw you off your game? So it's our, finish this sentence. It's our job as a salesperson to blank stalls and objections. What's our job?
Overcome.
Overcome them. Okay. What else have you heard it called? Overcome them, deal with them, handle them.
Anticipate them.
Anticipate them. All right. But how about this one? It's your job as a salesperson to prevent them from occurring. And you already know what the biggest ones are in your industry. So you should already have the talk tracks prepared to prevent the stalls and objections. And you shouldn't be afraid to bring them up. And I'm going to give you an example. Say that again, Scott.
I was going to say in advance.
In advance.
It's part of this process.
Part of the process. Because most oftentimes there's a term called equal business stature. And equal business stature, what that means is you consider yourself an equal in the pursuit of a deal with your prospect. And it doesn't matter who you're talking to. If you're talking to a CEO, a VP, an office manager, whatever it is, you are on equal footing, right? And too often, salespeople, they put their prospect in a higher regard than themselves, right? And typically, when you put your prospect in higher regard, what typically happens?
Well, you're never going to get the deal, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're ceding all control to them. You're answering all their questions. You're giving them information. You're giving them pricing. You're giving them specs. You may even be giving them the solution to the problem. But ideally, right, you're not getting what you need. And I'm not saying don't give those things, but before you do, make sure you're getting what you need. And what you need is what? What are some of the things that you need to really make a deal worthwhile for you, right? To turn somebody from a prospect into a client, right? After you've had some of the initial conversation, right? You know there's a problem there that you can solve. What else do you need? What do you think you need?
I guess for me personally, I would want to know you know, are we close? Are we talking the same language? You know, for me, if you're going to continue to set up more and more calls, once you've gone through all your initial, you know, information getting, and you've shared all your information, I guess you need to ask this basic question of, is what I'm just talking about, does that make sense to you on a business level?
Yeah, absolutely. You need clarity. You need clarity. You need to make sure that you can clearly articulate the problem that they're looking to solve, the business problem that they're looking to solve. All right, you need to be able, once you determine you can solve that, you continue in the sales process. And this might take multiple meetings, by the way, but you continue in the sales process. Once you understand the pain, you have to have that preliminary budget conversation. It doesn't have to be exact, but it can be ballpark, right? You're looking to spend this investment might be anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000. Should we continue the conversation? If they say, Scott, no way, that's more than double that we're paying now, then they're not in enough pain, right? But you should be able to have that initial budgetary conversation, right? So once you kind of have that and get that out on the table, the third piece of the qualification process is now the decision-making process, right? And when I say decision maker, it's you need to know everybody involved. And it's almost like you're an investigative reporter. You need to know the who, the what, the where, the when, the how, and the wow, and the how, right? So I might say, hey, Scott, besides yourself, I'm not going to say, hey, Scott, are you the decision maker, right? But I might say, Scott, besides yourself, who else is involved in making the decision on this project, on determining who you move forward with? Right. Besides yourself, that's giving you the opportunity to share with me, well, it's myself, then we have to form a committee, or I have to go to my VP, I have to go to the CEO. I want to find out, besides you, who else is involved, right? And if you start telling me that all these other people are involved, I'm going to start asking more questions, such as, will we have an opportunity to present to them? When we present our solution, will we have the opportunity to get in front of them as well? How did that play into the process, right? When are you looking to make a decision by? When are you looking to implement by? When are you looking to place the order by? When are you looking to have the project finished by? All these things we need to kind of know timelines, because sometimes you might win, but they need it tomorrow and you can't deliver it until for 3 months, right? So it's kind of like fully investigating the pain, the budget, the decision. And if you can clearly articulate that and have a really, really good understanding of that, your chances of winning the deal is much, much higher. Because you don't get stuck in what we call FU mode. Everybody knows what FU mode is, right? The follow-up mode, that's when we're stuck. And follow-up mode sounds like this. Hey, Ian, I'm leaving your voicemail. Ian, Scott from Sandler, I'm just checking in to see if you guys have made a decision. Then I'll send you the email. Hey, Ian, Scott from Sandler, I just left you a voicemail. I'm just checking in to see if you guys made a decision. Then I'll send you a text. Hey, I'm just seeing where you guys stand in the process. We call that justitis, right? And justitis occurs when you constantly use the word just in your follow-up. And if you follow a really good sales methodology, would we love for it to be Sandler? Absolutely. But whatever methodology you follow, right? If you are stuck in FU mode, follow-up mode, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong, because you should have clear futures for every step of the process. A clear future. And also, you want to give the people an out. You want to give them an out to tell you no. Because sometimes they don't want to tell you no. Why won't prospects tell you no sometimes?
Because they like you in some cases and they want to do business with you, but perhaps they can't in this particular case. Because they don't want to ruin a relationship either.
Yeah, they don't want to hurt your feelings. But they'd rather kind of ghost you or avoid you, right? But when you give them permission to tell you no, right? So it's hard for salespeople to do. What? No way, Scott. You're telling me to give people permission to tell me no? What if they tell me no? Then I'm screwed. No, it kind of sounds like this. If I'm setting up a meeting with Ian and I say, okay, Ian, here's what's going to happen. I'm glad we're getting together on Tuesday at 2:00. Ian, typically my meetings take about an hour. Are you okay with an hour? timeline? Awesome, that's great. Ian, I know you're gonna have a lot of questions for me. You're gonna want to learn more about Sandler, how it works, how it can help you. You're certainly probably gonna want to know investment parameters, right? What that's gonna entail. I'm gonna also have questions for you, Ian. I want to learn a little bit more about you and your business, your team, why you're meeting with us, why you called us, why you think your team needs sales training. So I'll ask you some questions along that. And Ian, if at any point in time during our conversation, if you don't think we are a good fit for you, or if you don't think we can help you, I want you to feel 100% comfortable telling me no, that it's not going to work. Will you do that for me? Right. Now, as we get to the end of our conversation, and if we do think we need to talk more, that there's a good opportunity that maybe, there is a chance for us to work together, you and I will decide together what those next steps look like. And those next steps could be, we need to set up another meeting, bring in additional people, whatever it might be, but we'll decide that together at the end of the meeting. Does that work for you? Right. So kind of setting clear expectations. What did you pick up there with that little brief example? The expectations I set for the meeting with Ian. You guys pick up anything?
You're serious, and you're allowing him the ability to back away when and if he doesn't feel that there's a good fit here. And you will not be offended. And quite frankly, you're letting him know too that your time is important. And if it's not going to work, you need to move on as well.
Absolutely. I'm trying to disqualify him too. Because equal business stature, my time's just as important as his time. It's not more important his time or less important. It's just as important. So ideally, I'm trying to determine if he's worth my time, my effort, my energy, and my resources, as should all of you. All right, but what else? Did you notice anything else with that example? Austin, Derek, anything kind of stick out with that example?
Oh, you're probably, not only a decisions point you're providing him to bow out, but to guide it as well. Like you're putting a little bit of control back into that person to, guide points of, sticky points or points of discomfort, control, put them at ease a little bit more. Because I think, with that, you can also gauge commitment. Because I'm not a sales guy per se, unless you ask my boss when he says everybody's a sales guy, which is true. But if you can't gauge a level of commitment, and I think those questions or those statements, better yet, that you relay to the potential client, helps you gauge that commitment if it really is the best use of your time as well. Because I'm sure we've all been involved with approaches and engagements that is sort of languished away based on indecision and lack of purpose, commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm letting the prospect think that he's in control, but really, who's in control?
You are.
I am. I'm telling him he can tell me no. I'm telling him if we agree that we need to investigate it more, we will take the time there at the end of the meeting to set up next steps. I'm letting him know that typically if other people are going to be involved, typically when we do present our solution, we like to make sure all the decision makers are in the same room or on the same call to avoid any type of, loss of translation. And I'm getting them to agree to this, right? They're buying into it, right? And they think they're in control, and that's what we want them to think. But when the prospect is in control, when they're fully in control, and you'll know they're fully in control when you find yourself being what I call an unpaid consultant. Anybody ever heard that term before, unpaid consultant?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. An unpaid, you said that with a little bit of frustration, Scott. Sounds like maybe it kind of happened a little bit in your back in the day.
Oh, many moons ago, my friend. I've learned that the expensive way.
Yeah. Unpaid consulting is when you give a ton of information and get nothing in return. You give them the presentation, the pricing, the demo, the specs, whatever it might be, and then you find yourself in chase mode, just checking in, just following up, just seeing what happens next.
You've given them all the questions to ask your competitors
Bingo.
because you didn't take control of the conversation in the first place.
And by the way,
as soon as they do that, now you're in a competitive mode, whereas perhaps you wouldn't have been in the first place.
yeah. And by the way, it's the best time to get information from them, i.e., decision-making process, budget questions answered, next meetings on the calendar for next steps. The best time to get that from them is before you give them everything that you have. Because sometimes once they get everything they need from you, they don't have a need for you anymore. Right? So before you give everything, get what you need, which is typically the pain, the budget, the decision, the next steps on the calendar. Don't be so willing to give away your information for free. You bring value to everybody you speak with. Right? So I just want to take a couple minutes to recap here. And then there's one more point on the list that I want to bring up. Right? We talked about qualifying. I think it was Austin who mentioned, or Derek maybe, who mentioned about, am I talking to the right people? Am I spending time with the right people? Right? Qualifying them, being that doctor, understanding the reason for doing business, the emotional compelling reason to change if they're using an incumbent provider, right? Or why you're there. So understanding why you're there, understanding what their budgetary limitations are, can they afford you, and knowing that you're talking to the right people. And if you're not, asking how you're going to get in front of the right people and why you're going to get in front of the right people. And use something called the third-party story. When somebody says to you, Derek, thanks for asking that, but I was told to gather all this information and then present it to my boss. Well, most salespeople will wimp out at that point and say, okay, no problem, right? But what you might want to do there is say, hey, Derek, thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. Is it okay? Can I share with you a situation that happened with another client not too long ago that told me the same thing? Absolutely. There was so much information being populated and shared and this and that. And then when they had to get in front of their boss or whatever, there's just so much confusion. And we were really able to help them eliminate that confusion, eliminate this, eliminate that, by making sure we kind of got them involved early in the process. We find it works so much better that way and so much more cohesively. It'll be much less work for you. Do you think that's a possibility? To which they might say, you know what, good point. Because I'm also talking to 3 other suppliers and I'm getting your information, I'm getting their information, and I have to compile all this, right? So now you're becoming more of that trusted advisor. You're suggesting to them, we found that this works better. And sometimes I might say, hey, it sounds great, but that'll never happen. You got to go all through me. Then, you figure out what to do next. But being that trusted advisor of giving them suggestions on how you've helped others, they might say, that's a great point. I might have to consider that. Right? So qualifying, pain, budget, and decision. Expectation setting. What I did with Ian. Listen, we're going to meet for an hour. You're going to have questions for me. I'm going to have questions for you. At the end of the meeting, we'll decide a couple of things. Yes, you want to move forward. Here's what we'll do, and we'll set up the next meeting. If it's a no, let me know. It's okay to tell me no. Right? And setting that, we call it an upfront contract, allows you to deal with your biggest fears up front. And your biggest fears might be chasing them. I don't want to chase you. Just tell me no. Your biggest fear is, I hate talking about money. So you're going to let them know. I said to Ian, we're going to talk. If we find out that there's a problem that we can help you solve, we'll probably bring up some investment strategies just so we can make sure that we're all in the same area code here. Right. And so I'm letting them know we're going to talk about money. It makes me uncomfortable to talk about it, but I'm letting them know we're going to talk about it. All right. So that's kind of like expectation management, expectation setting. Right. We're going to meet for an hour because sometimes you just show up for a meeting and 15 minutes in, after you give him all the information, he says to you, hey, we had an emergency meeting called, so I got about 5 minutes left. And you're like, whoa, I didn't even get my chance yet. All right. We talked about equal business stature. And the last part I want to talk about before we open it up for questions, messaging. Are we saying the right things, especially when we're prospecting or cold calling? We talked about features and benefits. It doesn't work. Nobody cares that you're the biggest, that you're the best, that you have the best quality, the best pricing, the best customer service. What people care about, what are the problems that you solve? What are the problems you solve for your best customers and your ideal prospects? And I'm going to share an example that I use in my world. I know the pain indicators that when I talk to my target audience are sales executives, CEOs, business owners. Typically, I know the biggest problems when it comes to salespeople that they have is quota attainment, stagnant sales pipelines, not enough opportunities in the funnel, not enough new meetings, new conversations. So if I'm cold calling somebody, right, my cold call might sound a little bit something like this. It's not going to be, hey, this is Derek. Hey, Derek, Scott from Sandler. Just calling. I own a sales training and performance development organization, and we help salespeople become more effective and more efficient by prospecting, blah, blah. Derek's going to hang up on me. Right? But we're going to formulate the call. We're going to change it. We're going to use pattern interrupts. And I might say, Derek will say, this is Derek. And I'll say, Derek, Scott Bliss with Sandler. Not sure if you're familiar with my name or my company. And that's just a pattern interrupt. I want to get him involved in the conversation right away. Right away, which he might say, no, Scott, can't say that I have. And I'm going to say, hey, no problem. I didn't think you would have. Hey, Derek, can I take 30 seconds to tell you why I'm calling you? And at the end of that 30 seconds, if you have zero interest in hearing anything further, it's perfectly okay to hang up on me. When I say that, what do you think most people say?
They'll give you the 30 seconds.
They'll give me the 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, 30 seconds.
They'll give me the 30 seconds. And so now I'm going to say, Derek, when I work with sales leaders like you, they often tell me that they're concerned that there's a lot of inconsistent sales quota attainment. Some of their people are making their numbers, but more of them are consistently missing it versus making it. Other sales leaders share with me that they're worried about stagnant sales pipelines. There's a lot of junk in the pipeline, clogging up the middle of that pipeline. Not enough new opportunities are entered into the top of the funnel. And also folks are telling me that there's a struggle within their organization for their salespeople to have a really good GPS when it comes to prospecting, right? They're not doing the right activities that are leading to new conversations, new meetings, new opportunities entered into the sales funnel. Derek, I'm not sure if you're experiencing any of those issues or not within your organization. To which a lot of times Derek might come back and say, you know what, Scott? Yeah, of course I am. We're in sales. Absolutely. Right. Now I'm going to say, is there one specific one more than the others? And he might say, stagnant sales pipelines. We don't have enough in there. How long has this been going on, Derek? 6 months. What have you guys tried to do about it? Well, this, that, we've had meetings, whatever. Has that worked? Not really. Is it something that you probably want to look into maybe fixing at some point in time? Yeah, you know what? Come to think of it, we might. Now, here's where most salespeople make the biggest mistake. I have Derek, I got a little bit of interest from him. So what they tend to do is they continue the selling process right then and there and try and close them on the phone. Right? And maybe it now turns into a 10-minute conversation. And that 10-minute conversation, at the end of it, Derek says, you know what, Scott, this sounds interesting. Can you send me information? What do you think send me information a lot of times is code for?
Give me a proposal that has all the details.
Yeah. Or I'm not really interested. I just spent 10 minutes
Ghosting.
with you. Right. But I'll send it. The purpose of the cold call is not to sell. The purpose of the cold call is to see if there's enough interest generated based on the pains that you solve to set up a meeting. So what I might do is after I'm talking to Derek for a couple of minutes, by the way, I only asked for 30 seconds, right? Now we're talking for a couple of minutes. He said, yes, we're having some issues with some stagnant pipelines. I'm going to ask him a couple more questions and I'm going to say, Derek, how about we do this? Sounds like Sounds like we might have a little bit more to talk about. I know you were not expecting my call, so why don't we do this? Why don't we take out our calendars, pick a day where I can either come to your office, or if you want to jump on a Zoom call, however it is that you do business today. But let's take out our calendars, pick a day where I can come to your office and we can talk about this in a little bit more detail and see if this is something we can help you with. What do you think? Now you're respecting his time. I'm not calling to try and sell you anything on the phone. The purpose of the cold call is to schedule a meeting. That's the purpose of the cold call. So when you think about your messaging, I think it was Derek who said elevator pitch earlier. Rewrite your elevator pitch. Sandler can help you with this, right? Rewrite it to talking about the pains that you solve, not the features and benefits of your organization, why you're so great, the pains you solve. What are they? And come up with at least 3 of them. Because if you just say, we work with people with stagnant sales pipelines, and Derek says, oh, our pipelines are amazing, I got nothing to talk about. But I know when I say sales quota issues, stagnant pipelines, inconsistent prospecting activities, usually my prospects have issues in those areas. Think about
I just wanted to say,
pains you solve.
wanted to say thank you. I've got to jump off. I actually have another sales call I'm jumping on, but
No problem.
thank you very much for just the time today. So, and I'm assuming you're going to send out Ashley or Natalie. You guys are going to send out the recording.
Yep. We'll send it to everyone who attended.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all. Take care. Nice to meet you
Thank
all
you.
too.
Nice to meet you too, Scott. And guys, I know it's top of the hour here. I went over a little bit. I'll stay on if there's any questions, but I mean, it's a lot. We just discussed a lot of stuff, right? But if we're thinking about it, take the time to understand the pain, get your messaging straight, talk about the pains you solve, set proper expectations, give them permission to tell you no, let them know you're going to talk about, you're going to ask them a bunch of questions to find out if you can help them. All right, you're going to talk about budget at some point, right? It might not all happen in the first meeting, by the way. But any questions? Anything else I can help you guys with?
How about if you've connected with someone on LinkedIn? So that's fairly warm because they've accepted your connection. But what's that, I guess, initial, outro message to get that meeting? When you're not actually talking about the pain points yet, but.
Yeah, stay away from what we call the pitch slap. You ever hear of the pitch slap?
Mm-mm.
So if you send me a connection on LinkedIn and I accept it, and then 5 minutes later or the next day you give me here's my Calendly, let's pick a 20-minute, don't do that.
Yeah.
LinkedIn right now is it's the best place to grow business for sure. I've grown my business tremendously on LinkedIn, but it takes time. You have to nurture your relationships on LinkedIn. You have to bring value. Connect with people, bring them value, comment on their posts, like their posts, get involved in their posts for a few weeks. If you have white papers on what you do, shoot them white papers. And then if they start engaging with you based on your likes and your comments, I don't care who you are. If Ashley puts something on LinkedIn and I like it, she's going to get a notification, Scott Bliss liked your post. And she might say, who the hell is this Scott Bliss? And she might click on my profile. Or I'll comment on our post. Wow, Ashley, very engaging post. Loved it. Great. Thanks for posting that. She's going to click on it and see who I am. Now, I might do that over the course of a few weeks. If she's posting on LinkedIn, I might make some comments on it. So now, maybe 3 weeks later, right after I've engaged with her content, now I might say, hey, Ashley, I'd love to learn more about you guys and who you are and what you do. Any chance we can set up a brief meeting, right? But it takes time to nurture it, and we have separate courses that we do that with in Sandler. But yeah, if you just kind of like connect and pitch, you're not going to get success on LinkedIn for sure. Any other questions? Actually, we went over a little bit. Are we okay if I answer a couple more questions if there are?
Yeah, I've got no hard stop.
All right.
Go ahead.
Derek, Austin, any other questions?
No, actually, I was just getting ready to comment that I really appreciate this opportunity to listen to you and cover the topics that we did. Any time that a non-sales guy who has to be in charge of some sales folks or do sales themselves, it can coordinate, learn from from other folks is greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you again. Thanks.
No problem. Anytime. Reach out. You can get my email, my information. Ashley will send it out, but reach out if you have questions. If today was a fire hose. We had an hour, and we put in like 5 different things that typically are 90-minute sessions in their own right, in 1 hour. So if there's any interest in learning more, Ashley and Natalie know how to get a hold of us. And anytime you want to maybe proctor one of our sessions and sit in on them as a guest, let us know. We'll be happy to arrange that.
Hey, Scott, I just want to apologize here for coming in late. I was in a client meeting there, but I agree with everything you said, about the expectation setting. I think it's huge. And just thank you for, explaining that in really breaking it down in a way that it was easy to understand. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. No problem. Anytime. And I always answer my emails and my texts. So if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out.
Great.
Thanks,
you.
everybody.